Welcome back to Rich Words Music, where today we're doing something of a single cut sound test, because at the moment I happen to have not one, not two, but three vintage branded single cutaway Les Paul influenced guitars at my office. Now, they're not guitars that I own, you understand. Two of them were loaned to me by the German vintage distributors Musikwein, and the other one was loaned to me by my good friend Kai. But I've got them all here at the same time. One of them has standard humbuckers in it, one of them has mini humbuckers in it, and the other one has a P90 in it. And I thought that this would be a great chance for us to play a bunch of different riffs, as I like to do on my channel, in different styles, just to see how those three different pickup types work in a Les Paul type setting with those three different guitars and with the kinds of music that I like to play. So that's exactly what we're going to do today. Let me first tell you that I do have much more in-depth videos of each of the three guitars that are going to be featured in this video. You can check those out at the description or in the comments or in the links down below after watching this. But let me give you a very quick rundown of the specifications of the three guitars then. So the first guitar in our comparison here is the Vintage V100MRBK, and this guitar is part of Vintage's ICON range of electrics, and those are the beaten up, relict and road-worn guitars. And whatever you think about those, close your eyes for this video because we're doing a bit of a sound test today instead. And this guitar is the most classically Les Paul-esque of the three in our comparison. So we have a mahogany body on this guitar and a maple top, and we have two Wilkinson humbuckers, and these are quite classically voiced, quite vintage sounding humbuckers. The neck is going to be quite familiar for anyone who knows Les Pauls. So we've got a rosewood fingerboard with 22 medium jumbo frets. The scale length is 24.75 inches or 628 millimeters. The neck profile is a C shape. It's slim to medium C shaped. We've got a Graphtec nut here, and over at the headstock we have 6 Grover tuners. So this is the Vintage V100MRBK, the most traditional, the most Les Paul-esque of the three guitars that we're going to be looking at. The second guitar in our comparison today is going to be the Vintage V100WR, and the WR in the name stands for wine red because we have this beautiful burgundy finish. But what sets this guitar apart from the standard V100 or standard Les Paul type instrument is the fact that it has two mini humbucking pickups. These are slightly different from full fat humbuckers. They should give us a slightly more almost single coil-esque spanky sparkly sort of a tone, and they probably won't be as fat as the full-size humbuckers, but that's what we're going to find out in the rest of the test. Now, apart from that, this guitar is quite similar to the V100 that we just saw, so mahogany body, those two mini humbuckers being the main difference. Up at the neck, very similar to the V100, so we've got the same scale length, we've got the same fingerboard radius, 22 medium jumbo frets on a rosewood board, a Graphtec nut and Grover tuners as well. So that's the V100WR with its mini humbuckers. And the third and final guitar of the three is a little bit off the beaten track compared to the other two. It's the Vintage V120, and you can clearly see straight away that this guitar looks very different to the other two. It has a mahogany body with no carved maple top, and it also has just the one pickup. Now, traditionally Les Paul Juniors would have a single coil P90 pickup in the bridge position, and this is a Wilkinson stacked P90. Now, traditionally P90 pickups are single coils. They're very well renowned for their mid-range honk and their snarl and their punky rawness, and this pickup does that in spades. But because it's stacked, what that should mean is that as we progress in the amounts of gain that we use in the demo, as we go up to the harder rock and the metal sound settings, we're probably not going to get as much unwanted noise as we would with a standard P90 pickup. So that's the body of the guitar, very simple. Moving up to the neck then, and the neck is also slightly different to the other two. First off, I have to say that this guitar has pretty much the biggest neck I've ever seen in terms of profile. It's a super chunky C shape. It's really nice, but if you like slimmer necks, you definitely need to test this one out for yourself before buying one, because it is really big. And because this is a 2020 model, it doesn't have quite the same specifications as the newer V100s that I've been playing. So this guitar has a lignum rosa fingerboard, whereas a 2022 model would have a rosewood board, and it has Wilkinson tuners. Now, the newer guitars built in 2021 and 2022 will have Grover tuners on them. Apart from that, it's very much Gibson neck dimensions again. We have that 24.75 scale length, we have a 12-inch fingerboard radius, and the 22 medium jumbo frets alongside the Graphtec nut put us right at home for Les Paul type playing and tones. So those are the three guitars then. So we've got a P90 pickup in this guitar, and we've got mini humbuckers and full-size, full-fat humbuckers in the V100MRBK. And what we're going to do now, without further ado, is play the three guitars. I'm going to play a bunch of different riffs in different styles, just so we can hear how different and actually how similar in some cases the three guitars guitar's sound, and I think this will be quite a useful exercise because often when you're looking for a guitar like a single cutaway, like a Les Paul, you do have many different options when it comes to pickup types, bodywood types and so on, and it's really good sometimes to get an overview of the basic major differences. So we're not going to focus too much on the specification differences of the three guitars. This is all about the sounds, and that's what we're going to do right now. So my rig for today is going to be my Hughes & Kettner Black Spirit 200 amp head, and we're going to be going straight from the red box on the back of the amp into my recording software. We'll start on the amp's clean channel and play some folky stuff, some poppy stuff and some indie stuff. Then we'll go to the amp's crunch channel, do a bit more indie because I really like indie, in case you haven't worked that out yet. We'll do some classic rock there as well before progressing to the amp's lead channel, where we'll do some heavier rock, some punk and some alternative rock. And at the end we'll go back to the amp's clean channel. I'll switch on my Rev G3 distortion pedal, we'll tune the three guitars down to drop D, and we'll see if they can do a bit of metal and a bit of chugging. Enough talk then, it's three different vintage Les Paul type electric guitars. Let's play them now and we'll speak a little bit more about those sound differences afterwards. Okay then, so that was the tonal comparison between the three vintage single cutaway electric guitars, one with humbuckers, one with mini humbuckers, and the other with a single P90, albeit a stacked P90. And I'm really interested to hear what you guys think. Which guitar did you prefer and why? Let me know which one you thought sounded best down in the comments down there, and I really look forward to hearing what your thoughts are and to getting a bit of a discussion going, because I'm pretty sure that we all have some pretty differing opinions when it comes to these kinds of tones. But my opinions are as follows. Well, I actually really like all three of the guitars. I've done full-length video demos of all three, as I've mentioned previously, and I do think that they all excel in a lot of different musical styles, and they're all very versatile guitars too. Now, a Les Paul, a traditional one with two humbuckers like this one, the Vintage V100MRBK, can cover so much ground. It's a lovely warm sounding guitar, it's thick and fat sounding too, so it's great from anything from jazzy cleans through to classic rock tones and even metal down-tuned sounds as well. A Les Paul is a very versatile instrument, and I thought that this specific model did very well in the test. However, I do have to say that once we got it straight up against the P90, in some contexts I thought it sounded just a little bit muffled. You know, when you've got that bright and shrill P90 sound coming straight back to this, it is worlds apart. So that was a big difference straight away. Now, the mini humbuckers on the V100WR are a different kettle of fish. Mini humbuckers are a really interesting pickup, and I think they're very underrated too. They kind of, for me, have a lot of the advantages of humbuckers in that they're thick and fat sounding and don't hum, so they don't have lots of noise and unwanted extraneous noise when you're playing high gain stuff. But they also have some of the advantages of single coils too, because they have good top end, they're sparkly and spanky, and they do a lot of nice stuff in that regard as well. So the V100WR is really, really exceptionally versatile, and I would say it's probably the most versatile of these three instruments. And you could hear that it was a nice little middle ground between the other two guitars. Now when we got to the Les Paul Jr.-esque V120 with its single stacked Wilkinson P90, we were in different tonal worlds again. The V120 is very much, in my opinion, a punk rock guitar. It's a simple piece of mahogany with a pickup strapped to it that you just plug in and rock out with. It snarls and it growls, and it has that mid-range honk and bite that you would expect from a P90, and because it's stacked, it has a little bit less noise when you whack the gain up. I do also think that because it's a stacked P90, it does have a little bit less of the vital attack of a standard P90, but it's really a very minimal difference indeed. And if you're actually interested in hearing the differences between the pickup in the V120 and a standard single coil P90 as found in my Harley Benton SC Junior guitar, there's a video that you can watch right there that will give you a bit more insight into the differences between a true P90 and a more stacked P90. But let's go back and talk about the different kinds of tones as we went through them then. So when it came to clean sounds, I really think that for me personally, I love the vibrancy of the sparkly top end of a single coil pickup. However, with the P90, it had a little bit too much aggression in the mids for me, and so I would say that for me personally, for the clean tones, I was edging to the mini humbuckers in the V100WR in terms of my personal taste. Now I love the warmth and the jazziness of the V100, but because they're hotter, because they're higher output, they also push the amp up a little bit more into breakup, and I don't quite like that so much. Now I should say, of course, I could turn the amp's gain control down a little bit, but I wanted to have the three channels pretty much in neutral territory, so each of the three guitars would be able to do their thing without too much influence from the amp. When we went up onto the crunch channel for the classic rock stuff, that's where I thought the full-sized humbuckers were really at home. They are a legendary style of pickup for that kind of music, and they just sounded right. These Wilkinson pickups are quite classic voiced, and they sounded great for the AC/DC sort of influence stuff. They do it authentically. They sound fantastic. They're huge sounding, they've got a mid-range push, and they just make it sound like you're playing to a stadium full of fans or something like that. You get something a little bit different from the mini humbuckers and from the P90 as well. They both sound great too, but I think for classic rock stuff it almost feels more like the full-sized humbucker is where it's at. Now for the indie tones on the crunch channel, I thought that the mini humbuckers and the P90s had a little bit more clarity over the humbucker, and so they won out for me there, but again, it's personal taste in that regard. When we went up to the amp's lead channel and did the hard rock stuff and the punk rock, again, the full-sized humbuckers, they give you that huge sounding fullness and that thickness and that low end, but they lack a little bit of the clarity of the other two. So again, I would say there, pick the pickups for you that you really think are going to work best for the style of music that you would play. For me personally there, I feel like the mini humbuckers just have that great kind of combination of the full-sized humbucker thump and also the almost twangy overtones and high end of a single coil. And finally, when we tuned the guitars down to drop D and did some metal stuff, that's a totally subjective thing, because I think most players would pick a full-sized humbucker for that, and this guitar sounded fantastic for the metal. Again though, if you want super types of clarity, you could try a mini humbucker. It's an outside of the box choice for that kind of music. And I do know players who use P90 equipped guitars to play metal. They sound so dirty and filthy, they sound so chunky in a way, but also thin in another way. It's a really interesting sound, and it is definitely a usable one, but if you're using P90 pickups to play metal, I would say you need to find a noise gate of some kind, because they do get very noisy indeed. So as I've said, this video was just about the sounds, but there are many other factors which affect how a guitar feels, how it plays, and how it performs. Okay, so hold up for just a second. Now it's the day after I shot the video and I'm just going through it, editing it, and I've just heard myself talking about the sound differences between the guitars, and I did realise that there's one thing that I omitted from that spontaneous chat, and that was the fact that the Vintage V120, being a Les Paul Jr. type guitar, actually only has one pickup. It doesn't even have a neck pickup, and of course that is going to impact overall on the guitar's versatility. It's going to enable you to do things differently to other instruments, but it also doesn't let let you do certain things that you can do with other guitars. Do I personally miss that? No, not at all really, and I guess that's why it didn't come to my mind when I did the spontaneous chat just now. But for me, I have to say that when I'm playing guitar, I'm usually on the bridge pickup all the way. Especially for drive stuff, it's very rare to find me on the middle setting or on the neck pickup setting. But for cleans, I do tend to use the Les Paul on the middle position, so both pickups on, and I made a few nice tones earlier in the video that you'll have heard and seen me doing that with. I do quite like that, but when you're playing a Les Paul Junior type guitar, at least for me, you don't miss not having a neck pickup. You work with what you've got. You've got the tone control, you can play a little bit further up the neck. I did some of those techniques in the video, and I really don't think you miss it. Sure, when you do a direct A-B comparison between a neck humbucker and a bridge P90 on a Les Paul Junior, you're totally going to see that difference if you hear them back to back like we just have. But for me personally, I don't miss a neck pickup at all. I just enjoy plugging in and rocking out with what I've got. So anyway, sorry for the short interruption, and back to the rest of the video. So as I've said, this video was just about the sounds, but there are many other factors which affect how a guitar feels, how it plays, and how it performs. And as I've also said, you can go and watch the full-length videos where I talk in a lot more detail about these instruments, but just here to give you a quick kind of almost bullet point-esque overview of the other differences between the guitars, let me tell you those very quickly now if you don't want to watch one of the other videos. In terms of build quality and playability, I find all three of these guitars to be fairly similar. Now, the V120, the Les Paul Junior S guitar, has a super chunky neck, and that is a big difference. If you're into very fat necks, you'll love it. If you're not, I suggest testing it out before you buy it, because it might be a little bit too much. Now, when it comes to the playability of the three guitars, for me, what I really like about necks is when they're satin finished. That makes the neck really slinky, really easy to get up and down quite fast. And the V100MRBK has a satin finished neck, which makes it very slinky. It's a joy to play. So the V100WR with the mini humbuckers and the V120 both have poly finished necks, so they have a much thicker finish on the back of the neck, and that can get sticky when you play for longer. If you get a bit sweaty, it is a little bit of an issue for some players. Not too much of a problem for me, but I would always pick a satin neck over a poly finished neck if I can get one. So that's where the V100MRBK wins for me in that respect. And another little tip just from my side, if you're looking to buy one of these guitars new, as I've already mentioned, try and get a 2021 model or newer, because then you'll be getting a rosewood fingerboard, and you'll probably be getting Grover tuners as well. The older vintage models had Wilkinson tuners, and there's nothing wrong with Wilkinson tuners whatsoever. I've used them for many years on many of the guitars that I've owned, and they're fantastic, but there's just something about having a name like Grover, if you can get it, and I feel that in some way, possibly just psychologically, that does add a little something to the value of the guitar. Now, all of these guitars will probably cost you between $400 and $500 or pounds or euros, depending on your local currency, so they're very keenly priced, and I recommend that you do check them all out. There is, of course, plenty of competition when it comes to Les Paul single cutaway styles of guitars, most obviously from the likes of Epiphone. They have a bunch of different Les Pauls that they make today, and of course the used market is a great place to search out bargains if you can. Check everything out, check out the different kinds of pickup options that you have, because there are more than what I've just mentioned in this video. You can get guitars with double P90s, for example. There are other kinds of pickups available on guitars like Gretsch's as well. See what floats your boat, check out the favorite bands that you like, see what guitars they use, and try and get something similar. But I would have no qualms whatsoever in recommending any of the three vintage guitars that I've tried today. You'll know that if you've watched the three separate videos that I've done with those guitars. At the end of the day then, just thinking about the sounds, which of these guitars would I buy? Well, if we're going completely out of context and not taking into account the fact that I own an Epiphone Les Paul with humbuckers, if I wanted that most Les Paul-esque thing, I would have to go for the V100MRBK with the full-sized Wilkinson humbuckers, because it does that Les Paul thing. It sounds like a Les Paul, and you're going to sound like so many iconic players if you get a guitar like this. Now, if you want something snarlier, something punkier, something to sound a bit more like Billie Joe Armstrong of Green Day, for example, the Les Paul Junior-esque V120 is going to be perfect. Billie Joe Armstrong actually had a signature Les Paul Junior, so that's a perfect guitar for doing that kind of stuff. And if you want something a little bit out of the box, if you want something a little bit different that not many players are going to have, but is actually mega versatile, then try out a guitar with mini humbuckers. The V100WR is a fantastic instrument and I really, really love it and would like to keep it actually if I could. Those Wilkinson mini humbuckers are really exceptionally versatile. They sound great for everything. They do a great approximation of a single coil and of a full-size humbucker and of everything in between. And anything from pristine cleans through to full-on metal they can do no problem whatsoever. So in that sense, choose what kind of music you play most, pick the guitar that you think is going to work for you, and I'm confident that you will make the right decision at the end of the day. But if you do have any more questions, feel free to drop them down there in the comments and I shall answer to the best of my ability. But I hope this video has done a little bit to help you understand the differences between the three different pickup types in a single cutaway, mahogany-bodied guitar. I really hope that you've now got more of an understanding for the different sounds you get from humbuckers, P90s and mini humbuckers. And if you're still around, it would mean the world to me if you would consider giving this video a like, or maybe even subscribing to the Rich Words Music channel. It all helps build the little Rich Words Music community that we're starting to build here. If you'd like to watch some more similar videos from me, there's a couple being recommended here, and if you want to subscribe to the channel, you can click my little face up in the corner there to do just that. But that's been it for today's video. I've been Rich for Rich Words Music, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.